How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Bodacious Rant with Burn and Rye. Hope everybody's doing good. We are now officially in the summer season ever since Memorial Day, so I'm sure everybody's thinking about, let's go camping, let's go to the lake, let's hit all this stuff. Me and Burn just watched this movie that definitely does not make me want to go to a lake nor a forest anytime soon. Call it paranoia, call it what you will, but, being honest. So we are talking about the latest horror movie from the Shudder IFC collaboration like they did on Late Night with the Devil earlier this year, and that was a solid movie. This is definitely a different take on horror, which is called In a Violent Nature, directed by a guy named Chris Nash, who I've never really seen his work. It's kind of a lot of other horror movies. And this is a non-spoiler review, guys, as always. So if you do happen to like the video, or if you did see the movie, please give us that thumbs up. If you haven't done so already, click the bell for the notifications, and of course subscribe, because we do appreciate you all for that and want to keep growing the community as always. Again, we love you all. So this is essentially a new modern take on slashers, just because, while Scream has done really well as a franchise way to reboot itself and, remained relevant for the most part, that can't be said for a lot of traditional slasher films. Like Friday the 13th, there hasn't been anything in a while. Nightmare on Elm Street died 10 plus years ago. So this is one of those movies that essentially it's like Halloween and Friday the 13th had a baby, in which these group of these adults are at this lake, just for a weekend trip, and they are being stalked by a quiet killer who just constantly walks through the forest. And for those of you who have wanted to always know what a serial killer is doing in between the kills in horror movies, this movie kind of answers your question for it. Just because it's all told from the point of view of the killer, like literally, like the shot's always behind him for the most part. So, yeah, it's a pretty straightforward movie, like without spoiling it too much. It was a solid film, definitely different in terms of slasher. But Byrne, what did you think of this movie overall?
It's one of those where, the greatest strength of the movie is also its greatest weakness, it seems like. And I guess it would really work for, better for certain individuals and less for other individuals. It's going to be one of those that it's going to leave you a little bit, on one side or the other, depending on how, you come into this movie, just for the fact of the matter that it is one of those movies where, the entire point of view of it is basically in the point of view of the killer. So it's essentially, Friday the 13th, but, if it were from Jason's perspective, and that's basically what they're doing here. And you know what, to be honest, I wish I could say that they did a little bit more than that. I thought, they executed on the premise pretty much about as well as you could do it. I thought that they shot it really well, even though a lot of the shots are from, behind the character. I thought they, gave it a certain a melodic and sort of like an uneasily how do you say it, just like serene approach to it, which is kind of interesting for a horror movie where you're following the killer. But it's like you mentioned throughout other movies, you don't really know what's going on in between the kills. They kind of just pop up and just get somebody, and here we do get to see what that is, and a lot of that is just kind of like walking through the forest in this case, and that's why it's kind of like a tranquil in that aspect. But it does kind of leave me wanting a little bit more in terms of, characters and story and a deeper narrative in that aspect. So on that front, we don't really get too much. But within the realm of, following the killer, I think they did it about as interesting as they could have with the way that they shot it, the way that they staged it, and then, punctuating those quiet moments with, some pretty brutal kills. I thought they did that about to the best of their ability. It's just that I wish they could have gone a little bit more and sort of elevated the rest of the movie, like they did with, the following of the killer. I wish they could have just given us a Friday the 13th movie, but as if, people actually cared about the material.
Yeah, that's a very fair assessment. I will say this movie definitely had some gnarly kills, like you said. I think some of the most, at least one of them was one of my favorite things, and also most cringiest things I've ever seen. Bernard, you know what I'm talking about, which part. And yeah, I want to say we're entering a new, for the younger generations, I think they're appreciating more elevated horror, and that's what this definitely is considered, like more on the artsy aspect of it all, just because traditional slasher films, you have, the traditional characters like, stoners, sex crazed couples, the good, pure hearted person, all that kind of stuff. Kind of like Cabin in the Woods, if you all ever seen that. That was an early Chris Hemsworth movie when he was like not even jacked. But, anyways, um, so I think this is definitely more for like elevated horror fans, but even then it's going to be hit and miss, just because, like Burns said, because it's behind the point of the view, and the character, all he does is walking. It's very calm and tranquil. Like it's one of those things that if you're very prone to falling asleep during the movies when it's slow, or if you need more stimulation, this movie's not going to be for you. Or if you want like an hour and a half nap, go for it then. I'm just not comfortable napping in public like that, so I don't like doing it. But other than that, I think that, like I said, some of the kills were really well done. It's pretty straightforward. I would say the gore and kill level is kind of on the side of Terrifier. So for those of you who've seen those movies with Art the Clown, where he's like that black and white mime clown, whatever you want to call him, this may be a little bit up your alley as well. Other than that, I'm just going to give it a 3 out of 5, just because while I did appreciate what they're trying to do with, the point of view of the serial killer, the design, the kills, and also just the scenery was beautiful, like even though it's kind of supposed to be like a dingy kind of like lake and forest, it still was very nice to see. But it did drag on a little too long, and especially the ending. When it got to like the last several minutes of the ending, I was like, are we done yet? Let's speed this up kind of. So, yeah, would I recommend this? Maybe on a $5 Tuesday for the most part. Just because I don't think you should pay full price for something like this. Or if you want to wait till it's on the Shudder app, since Shudder did help produce this, then go for it. But yeah, 3 out of 5 for me.
Yeah, I mean, like I've mentioned, I wish it could have sort of like reinvented the wheel a little bit more than it attempted to. That's one of the things. The movie doesn't feel like the filmmakers were really attempting to reinvent the wheel outside of the perspective shift. So, it's kind of hard not to, to like put that against them, since they weren't really making that attempt to sort of take, the slasher genre and sort of like all the tropes and elevate them, or subvert expectations. Like they weren't really trying to do any of that. It's really just, at the end of the day, Friday the 13th, but just from like Jason's perspective. And I wish they really could have gone and done that, where they like the movie X that came out a few years ago, where that definitely took the slasher genre and brought it up to modern standards and did a really excellent job, and we got 2 sequels out of it basically, so it's pretty successful. So I wish this movie could have done the same, but at the same time it didn't look like it was trying to do that. But for everything that it was trying to do with just giving us an interesting perspective, some really well shot movie, and some pretty cool and really well staged kills, I thought it did those in a good fashion. And again, it was just one of those things where it's like, I'm enjoying what I'm seeing. I wish you could have been doing more. You're not trying to do more. And I feel like it was a little bit of a missed opportunity there. So, I mean, overall, I did enjoy it for the most part. I will say, that because it does have that point of view focus, there is a little bit of a lack of tension also. So if you're kind of looking for scares or like some very like tense things, like you normally experience in a horror movie, you won't really be getting that from here because of that perspective. Seeing it through the eyes of the killer, the things just kind of like play out just sort of normally almost. So yeah, if that's one of the things that you like in horror, this won't be it for you. But like Rai said, it's definitely one that's worth checking out, at least, maybe a matinee or like a $5 Tuesday. Or if you want to wait till it comes out on Shudder, it's definitely worth a check out at that point. And for me, this one is going to be a 3 out of 5. Doesn't reinvent the wheel, does things pretty solidly, and I wish it could have done a little bit more.
Yeah, very very well put. And again, it's like critics are loving it, but I think again, horror. As much as I'm loving the horror movies that we're getting out so far this year, except for maybe a couple, it's gonna be one of those things. It's gonna be another very divisive hit and miss movie. Especially when I was leaving the theater, I heard some people just say straight up, "This sucked," and I was like, "Dang," I didn't think it was that bad, but yeah, again, if you've seen the trailers and you like those, then you'll probably enjoy the movie for the most part. So if you haven't, then not a big deal. But like I said, we're in the summer season now, so we're gonna have a lot of good stuff television wise. This month is gonna be great, I hope. And then we got Bike Riders coming out, which I've been looking forward to since last year, but that just kept getting delayed. We got Deadpool and Wolverine coming out in July. A lot of good stuff, I hope, this summer. So just keep following us along for the journey. And until next time, everyone, just stay bodacious and keep on ranting for us.
Absolutely, everybody. Be good, be safe, and as always, we'll catch y'all on the next one.